For those of you who haven't heard about the strike, about the tragedy that happened in Gaza, this is an older death count. It says that that Gaza medical officials say Israeli strike killed 4 foreign aid workers. It says 4 foreign aid workers, but 7 aid workers died. So I'm just going to use that title instead of just foreign aid workers. I'm just going to say 7 people died because 7 people are 7 people. So there were people working for the World, I'm trying to remember, WCK, World Central Kitchen, and they were driving in an area that was not supposed to be for combat. So this is a piece of land that is specifically taken aside and said, you can go here to do humanitarian operations, transfers, evacuation, stuff like that. It's supposed to be an area that was not meant for combat. And while they were delivering food from the UAE, I believe it was 400 tons of food off the back of a ship, and they were coordinating in the area, an Israeli missile strike, actually 3 missile strikes in quick succession, hit the World Central Kitchen vehicle, killing all of the aid workers, 7 in total. Afterwards, by the way, let me just be clear. This isn't disputed as a strike on civilian infrastructure. The World Central Kitchen says that they were aid workers. The local Gazan authorities say they were aid workers, and the Israelis say they were aid workers, and said Benjamin Netanyahu even came forward and specifically said that unfortunately in this instance innocent people died. So this isn't a debate about whether or not these people were innocent. And this is not a debate about if these people were at the wrong place at the wrong time, because they were in an area, a strip of land that was specifically allocated for the safety of aid workers. Now, after the strike on the consulate in Syria, there has to be a question about what areas are really safe and are by diplomatic norms supposed to be safe. What areas are safe and what areas are supposed to be safe? That is a question we have to think about. I think we've got a direct timeline here. Let me read the timeline. Here it is. The World Central Kitchen convoy was hit by Israeli forces in a deconflicted zone. So this is an area that's not meant for conflict. While delivering more than 100 tons of food in the Gazan city of Deir el-Abba, according to the organization, which has since paused operations in the region. Following the strike, celebrity chef Jose Andres, who is the founder of the World Central Kitchen, said in a statement on X that Israel needs to stop this indiscriminate killing and that the unintended strike is under a probe by the IDF, according to their spokesperson, Daniel Hagari. So, this was a strike on an aid vehicle that was transporting food, that was coordinated food in a deconflicted zone, an area that is supposed to be safe for aid workers. In every way imaginable, this airstrike shouldn't have happened. And so far, the Israelis have provided no justification for the actions, announcing that they're going to do a probe into what led into the strike, but giving no further justification for the attack. And I haven't seen anybody really give justification for the attack, because so far it doesn't feel like we've been able to find any justification for the attack. Now, as time goes on, maybe more information will show itself, but for now, that isn't the case. We have the names of those killed that I'm going to read. Now, we don't have names of all of them. Some of them are still anonymous. I believe the British nationals are anonymous still. Saif Abdu Tahan is a Palestinian driver and translator for the World Central Kitchen. He was originally from Rafah, and then there was Frank Combe, a 43-year-old from Melbourne, Australia. Her family confirmed her death in a statement. Then there was Damien Sobel, that was an aid worker from Poland, and that has been confirmed by Przemysl, which is the city in Poland that he is from. Their mayor confirming it on a Facebook post, saying that the person was a fantastic man. There was 3 British nationals, but their names have not been released, even though their deaths have been confirmed by the British Foreign Secretary David Cameron, who also happened to be the former Prime Minister who stepped down after the Brexit vote disaster. And there was also a dual citizen of the United States and Canada, but their identity has not been confirmed, and we don't know their name. Out of this war so far, I forget the exact number for UN aid workers. I believe it's in the like 140 range. But for the amount of aid workers that have been killed in the war so far that we know of, the number is 196. And I will tell you that number sounds high because it is high. There is no other war going on in the world right now where more aid workers have died than in the war between Israel and Hamas in the dense urban environments where combat is happening. And strikes are also happening outside of the areas where they're supposed to, outside of the areas where the Israeli army said, this is where we're fighting, this is where we're not fighting. I also want to say that this strike has shaken the confidence of aid delivery so much that not only has the World Central Kitchen halted aid deliveries to the Gaza Strip, but also the UAE, one of Gaza and one of the Palestinian people's backers in the Middle East have paused aid to Gaza by sea, which was the pathway that the Biden administration during the State of the Union said was going to be the lifeblood, the passageway to get aid to the people of Gaza. They're halting deliveries because they cannot guarantee the safety of aid workers in the Strip. The United Arab Emirates is pausing humanitarian aid efforts through a maritime corridor from Cyprus to Gaza, pending further safety guarantees from Israel and a full investigation into the deaths of aid workers in Gaza, a UAE official told Reuters on Tuesday. The official, who declined to be identified, gave no detail on the safety guarantees the UAE wants from Israel. An Israeli strike killed 7 people working for the World Central Kitchen Group in Gaza. I also want to say that Joe Biden has been in contact with the head of the World Central Kitchen, which is the famous chef, Jose Andres. I'm sorry, I'm not a big guy in the foodie world. I'm sure this matters a lot more for the people in my audience who are into that type of stuff. But he had a conversation with him and said that and Joe Biden said in the conversation that he was going to be pursuing a policy objective of getting the Israelis to take civilian casualties into consideration, but nothing new, nothing substantially new. There was some reactions, though, by U.S. press secretary. Actually, it wasn't, I don't think it was a U.S. press secretary, but it was a U.S. official. I believe it was Jack Kirby, who was talking to reporters about the strike. And we got 2 clips here from Ken Klipperstein that I wanted to check out here.
They provided, or has the Pentagon been able to gain any understanding of what happened here yet? I know it's early, but it sounds, based on what Jose Andres has said, that these workers were doing everything right. Their vehicle was marked. They were in a safe zone. Yeah. What more could they have done?
So the question is, hey, we have reason to believe that these workers did everything right. We have yet to find any evidence that they didn't. What could have these workers have done differently to have not been killed by the Israeli army, since they were in a safe zone? And this is true, and we didn't mention it in the story. Their vehicle was also marked as an aid worker's vehicle.
It's devastating to see these images and to hear these early reports about the steps that they tried to take to protect themselves. But the Israelis, look, they've already said this was on them, and they're doing this investigation. We obviously want to make sure that investigation gets completed and is as transparent as possible. And as I said in my opening statement, that there's accountability to be held here.
This was on them. One more I wanted to show you guys. This was about the reaction from Benjamin Netanyahu, where he said that this type of thing happens in war. And we're going to really read a slightly more full statement from Benjamin Netanyahu after this.
On the death of those World Central Kitchen aid workers, which includes 1 American who was killed, Netanyahu's reaction was, quote, "It happens in war." What is your reaction to that comment from Netanyahu?
I don't think it'd be useful for me to get into a tit-for-tat here with the Prime Minister of Israel from the podium. We've been very clear about our expectations for this investigation. We noted that the Prime Minister said himself there will be an investigation. So has his military said that. We look forward to that investigation being thorough and swiftly done. And as I said, that it'll be transparent, the results of it, and that if there's accountability that needs to be had, that it will be had.
So The official statement from Benjamin, and that's probably all we're going to get from the American government, at least for the time being. Now, to be clear, that's from the Biden administration. There are Democrats, even some pro-Israel Democrats. We saw Chuck Schumer's more blistering speech directed towards the government of Benjamin Netanyahu a few weeks ago. And I said at the time that this was likely to open up more opportunities for American politicians to be critical of Israel in the future. And wouldn't you know it, Democrats are letting their anger be known over this bombing. Let's read a little bit from this, even though much of them are still scared enough to say these sort of things in public. Let me give you an example. Democrats in Congress are outraged after an Israeli Defense Force IDF strike killed 7 humanitarian workers from the World Central Kitchen in Gaza. Israel's rift with Democratic lawmakers is growing wider, and some are calling for the U.S. to rethink its military aid policy. It's time to pull the plug on unconditional aid to Israel. They have not been good stewards of our money. One House Democrat who is a longstanding supporter of Israel told Axios. Now, of course, this is Axios' position to determine if this person is a quote-unquote long-standing supporter of Israel, but I don't have any reason to believe Israel would be lying about this. Who exactly they're talking about, though, I don't know. World Central Kitchen said in a statement on Tuesday that 7 of its workers were killed by an IDF strike. The Netanyahu government is forfeiting and squandering every day its moral standing and the support of the world, which existed after the October 7th atrocities perpetrated by Hamas. Representative Jamie Raskin, Maryland Democrat, by the way, who is Jewish, said in a statement, "The death and destruction should have stopped months ago." Representative Jan Skowalski, Democrat, another Jewish progressive, told Axios in a statement. Representative Mark Pocan, Democrat from Wisconsin, said in a statement to Axios that it is time for Israel to cease this indiscriminate bombing campaign, a lot of the use of the word indiscriminate today, with no end in sight, and allow for humanitarian aid to prevent needless suffering. Representative Jerry Connolly, Democrat from Virginia, called the strike an abhorrent act of indiscriminate bombing, another use of the word indiscriminate, adding, "It is indefensible and a further dark chapter for the Netanyahu government." So Representative Jerry Connolly, the Democrat from Virginia, copying semi the Chuck Schumer line here. Schwaltzky referenced a letter she and other Democrats sent to President Biden last month. It urged him to enforce rules restricting U.S. weapon transfers to countries that impede humanitarian aid. So as long, and by the way, the Israeli government will not allow the UN to transport aid through the northern border, in large part due to their conflict with the UN because of some members, and when I say some, I do mean like I think it's either single to low double digits of the thousands of workers that work for them in the Gaza Strip ended up participating in the October 7th attack. I think it might have been like at the end, I think they were saying like dozens, but then it got narrowed down to a lot fewer people. But some of them did participate, and therefore that is stacked upon previous objections that they had to the UN and how the UN was operating in Gaza, and now they're not cooperating with them, as well as asking allies to cut off their support for the UN. But if the UN is unable to get aid into the area and other organizations are unable to get aid into the area because their workers are being bombed, leading other countries that support Palestine, like the UAE, to pull out support until they can guarantee the safety of their workers, while 500,000 people, 500,000, stand on the brink of famine, you have a crisis on your hand. So as long as the Israeli government hinders the entry of U.S. humanitarian aid into Gaza, it is a violation in the law, and a violation of this law. It should not receive offensive aid from the United States. The House Democrat who spoke on the condition of anonymity said the U.S. had relied upon Netanyahu's statements that civilians are not targeted and that harm to civilians has come about because of Hamas using them as human shields. This claim cannot be made in connection with the horrific deaths of humanitarian workers with the World Central Kitchen. This is shameful. Now, that doesn't mean all Democrats are going this way. As Axios puts at the end, there are a few Democrats who've decided to take a different tone in reaction to this. I look forward to the results of Israel's announced investigation and stress that it must be comprehensive and transparent, and those responsible for this failure must be held to account. Representative Brad Schreidinger, Democrat from Illinois. Representative Steve Cohen, a Democrat from Tennessee, said the IDF has many newly called up soldiers. Obviously, many are not living up to the proficiency we've been led to expect of them. Gotta say, this is the tamest way you could say someone's committed a war crime ever. Are you really living up to the expectations of the army when you blow up those civilians? Disgraceful, honestly. In this situation, the World Kitchen information must not have been relayed to the striking forces, or they didn't follow instructions, Cohen said. Either way, it's heartbreaking. Or they didn't follow instructions. Jumping to a lot of conclusions this early on in a defensive position. But, of course, Netanyahu has also come out. This is the statement from him. Unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. The IDF said earlier it would probe the incident, which killed a number of foreign nationals, including a dual citizen of the US and Canada. So, it's unfortunate, unintentional. Big sorry, heart emoji, pray hands emoji. You get the idea. So how do I interpret this? Well, the first thing is opposition to Israel within the Democratic Party, or continuing the blank check to Israel within the Democratic Party, is only going to continue to grow. Not only has Chuck Schumer given Democrats the cover, but now Democrats have more reasons, and they're being given more reasons once more stories like this come out every day. I remember Justin Amash, a libertarian independent in Congress, him talking about his family members getting killed in that Orthodox church, that beautiful Orthodox church that was bombed by the Israeli army, and that causing opposition. And each one of these stories getting stacked on top of each other while Democrats are being given the signal by the leading and most senior Jewish politician in the country, who also just so happens to be the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. It seems to make a perfect storm for Democrats to either condemn Netanyahu's government or go further and just condemn the Israeli government as a whole. This is not a position just being hoisted up by Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, AOC, and Jamal Bowman. This is a position getting, none of the people in that article we just read, none of the people in this Axios article are people that you would call the squad. These are all people that are lesser known Democrats who are serving their constituents, are going to be primarily concerned with the people in their own district and their response to them and how they perceive them, and they're taking this position, indicating to me that they think that either A, this is a personal stance that they're taking, B, that they think there could be political reward for it because there's the demand to hold Israel and specifically Netanyahu's government accountable, or C, both. Either way, the Israeli government cannot endlessly take pot shots at aid workers and be given the benefit of the doubt by a party that has been given signals that they can be louder about Israel's, in this instance, war crimes.
$5. Breaking news: 7.4 earthquake in Taiwan.
Whoa, thank you so much for the $5. I appreciate that. We'll get over that into a moment once we finish this segment. I just want to quickly say that aid workers have the law of neutrality applying to them. They are not allowed to be targeted. I have been witness to aid workers being targeted and bombed before. It is a horrific experience. It shakes everybody involved to its core, even if nobody gets killed or injured. In this instance, 7 people died. They relied upon the idea that the paths that they were taking to deliver food was not going to be part of the war, was not going to be part of the conflict. And sadly, that was not the case. That confidence that was given to them by the Israeli government was not upheld. Those promises of respecting and not targeting these aid workers was not upheld. We're going to have to wait for the full investigation to get the full story. If we're going to get the full story, we'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, this is probably one of the most clear-cut examples of the Israeli army bombing, killing, maiming, and ending the lives of 7 people who wanted to better the world in just a little way through their interaction with it. It's a massive tragedy, and there's no getting out of this one through a PR angle. This is just murder.